Betrayal. It's one of those words that cuts deep just by hearing it. Whether it's a friend who revealed your secret, a partner who broke their promise, or someone close who chose their own interest over your trust, betrayal shakes something at the very core of who we are. It doesn't just hurt in the moment, it changes us forever. But why does betrayal have such a strong psychological impact? Why is it different from any other kind of pain? And what does it do to our mind, our emotions, and even our future relationships? In this three-part exploration, we will dive deep into the psychology of betrayal. Part 1. The nature of betrayal and why it cuts so deeply. Part 2. The short-term and long-term psychological consequences. Part 3. Healing, transformation, and how betrayal reshapes your identity and future. So let's begin. What is betrayal, really? At its simplest, betrayal is a breach of trust. But psychologically, it is much more than that. Trust is not just a word, it is the invisible glue that holds relationships together. When someone betrays you, they don't just hurt your feelings, they shatter the foundation of safety and security that your brain relies on to feel connected to others. Imagine a chair you've sat on every day for years. You trust it to hold your weight. But one day, without warning, the chair collapses under you. Even after it's fixed, every time you sit down, you'll hesitate. That's what betrayal does to the human heart. It teaches it to doubt. The evolutionary psychology of betrayal. To truly understand betrayal, we need to go back in time. Humans evolved in small tribes where trust and loyalty meant survival. If someone in your tribe betrayed you by stealing your food, revealing your weakness to an enemy, or abandoning you in danger, it could literally cost you your life. That's why betrayal feels so devastating even today. Our brain is wired to treat betrayal not just as emotional pain, but as a survival threat. When betrayed, your amygdala, the fear center of your brain, goes into overdrive. Your body reacts with stress hormones, your mind struggles to process what happened, and you're left feeling unsafe even in environments that were once familiar. Why betrayal hurts more than other pain? You might wonder, isn't betrayal just another form of disappointment? No, it's different. Here's why. It's personal. When a stranger insults you, it may sting, but when your best friend does it, the wound cuts 10 times deeper. Betrayal comes from the people we let closest to us, which makes it feel like a direct attack on our soul. It destroys identity. You start questioning yourself. Was I blind? Was I foolish? How could I not see this coming? In other words, betrayal doesn't just make you doubt others, it makes you doubt yourself. It attacks memory. After betrayal, even your happiest memories with that person feel tainted. It's as if betrayal rewrites your past. What once felt pure now feels like a lie. It isolates you. Betrayal convinces you that no one is safe to trust. This loneliness becomes its own kind of suffering. Real-life example 1. The friend who shared a secret. Imagine Sarah. She told her best friend Emily something deeply personal, her struggles with depression. She trusted Emily with this vulnerability, believing it was safe. But one day, Sarah finds out that Emily casually mentioned it to others. This moment doesn't just embarrass Sarah, it shakes her world. She feels exposed, unsafe, and even begins to regret opening up in the first place. Over time, she starts to question every person in her life. If Emily could do this, who else might betray me? This is how betrayal multiplies. It doesn't remain in one moment. It spreads like cracks in glass, reshaping how you see people in general. The psychological stages of betrayal. Much like grief, betrayal has stages. People don't always go through them in order, but most experience them in some form. Shock and denial. This can't be happening. They wouldn't do this to me. At first, betrayal feels unreal. The brain struggles to accept the reality. Pain and anger. As the truth sinks in, anger explodes. This anger isn't just at the betrayer, but also at yourself for trusting them. Obsession and rumination. The mind replays the betrayal over and over, analyzing details, searching for signs, wishing to rewrite the past. Depression and isolation. Exhaustion sets in. People pull back from others, feeling safer in isolation than risking trust again. Acceptance and transformation. Rare, but possible over time. Some people turn betrayal into growth. They build stronger boundaries, deeper self-awareness, and a wiser sense of trust. Real-life example 2. Romantic betrayal. Romantic betrayal is perhaps the most devastating form. Let's consider David and Anna. After 5 years together, Anna discovers that David has been unfaithful. Her entire reality collapses in an instant. She questions everything, every "I love you," every late night at work, every memory they shared. Even her sense of self-worth gets attacked. Was I not enough? Did I do something wrong? For Anna, the betrayal is not just about David's actions. It's about her entire worldview being shattered. And this is why betrayal changes us forever. It forces us to rebuild from the ground up. The dual wound, betrayal of trust and betrayal of self. One of the darkest aspects of betrayal is that it often makes us feel betrayed, not only by the other person but by ourselves. You think, why didn't I see it coming? How could I be so naive? I should have protected myself better. This is called self-betrayal after betrayal. It's the painful realization that in trusting someone else, you may have abandoned your own instincts. This is why betrayal lingers long after the event itself. It's not just about losing faith in others, but losing faith in yourself. Real-life example 3. Workplace betrayal. Betrayal isn't limited to personal relationships. Picture this. You've been working hard in a company, collaborating with a colleague you trust. One day, you find out they took credit for your work in front of the boss. This betrayal doesn't just cost you recognition, it changes how you view the workplace entirely. Suddenly, every compliment feels suspicious. Every collaboration feels risky. Work, once a place of growth, becomes a battlefield of guarded interactions. Why betrayal changes you forever. Here's the most important part. Betrayal doesn't end when the relationship ends. It creates lasting changes in your psychology. Hypervigilance. You become overly cautious, scanning for danger even in safe situations. Trust issues. You find it hard to trust anyone, even those who mean well. Identity shifts. You may redefine who you are, sometimes in empowering ways, sometimes in damaging ones. Emotional walls. Many people build thick emotional walls, protecting themselves from future pain but also blocking potential joy. In short, betrayal reshapes not just how you see others but how you see the world. Closing of part 1. Betrayal is not just an emotional wound. It is a psychological earthquake. It cracks the ground beneath you, leaving you unsure where to step next. In part 2, we will explore in detail the psychological consequences of betrayal, from trauma responses, anxiety, and depression to the ways betrayal rewires the brain itself. Because once betrayal enters your story, you are never quite the same again. In part 1, we explored what betrayal really means, why it cuts deeper than other forms of pain, and how it shatters trust, identity, and even memory. Now, let's go deeper into the psychological consequences of betrayal. Because betrayal is not just an event, it's an experience that leaves long-lasting marks on the brain, body, and soul. We'll uncover how betrayal creates psychological trauma similar to PTSD, why betrayed people often carry trust issues for years, how betrayal reshapes your emotions, behaviors, and worldview, and how these changes often ripple into every future relationship. Betrayal trauma, more than just heartbreak. Psychologists often use the term betrayal trauma to describe the lasting psychological effects of deep betrayal, especially by someone close. This concept was first developed by psychologist Jennifer Freyd, who explained that when someone you depend on for survival, safety, or emotional stability betrays you, the trauma hits differently. For example, a child who is abused by a parent, a partner cheated on by a spouse, a friend abandoned in a moment of need. These betrayals don't just hurt, they confuse the brain, because the person you trusted for comfort becomes the source of your pain. This creates a psychological paradox. You want to run away from the person, but you also feel you can't survive without them. That's why betrayal trauma often feels like being trapped. The brain under betrayal. Let's get scientific for a moment. When betrayal occurs, several parts of the brain light up. Amygdala, fear center, activate stress responses, making you hyper-alert and anxious. Hippocampus, memory center, replays betrayal memories again and again, making it hard to move on. Prefrontal cortex, logic center, struggles to make sense of the event, creating obsessive overthinking. This cocktail of brain activity explains why betrayal can keep people awake at night, stuck in cycles of "what did I do wrong?" or "how could they do this to me?" In fact, studies show that betrayal can trigger symptoms similar to PTSD, flashbacks, nightmares, anxiety, emotional numbing, and avoidance. Real-life example 1. Childhood betrayal. Take Alex, who grew up in a home where his father often promised to be there for soccer games, but never showed up. Each broken promise planted a seed of betrayal. As an adult, Alex struggles to trust authority figures, bosses, or even partners. His brain has been conditioned to expect disappointment. This is betrayal trauma in action. It wires the brain to anticipate future betrayal, even where it may not exist. Emotional consequences of betrayal. The emotions that follow betrayal are not simple sadness. They are complex, layered, and often contradictory. Anger, a burning rage toward the betrayer for their actions. Shame, a painful self-directed feeling, "I must not be worthy of loyalty." Guilt, wondering if you somehow caused the betrayal. Confusion, struggling to reconcile good memories with painful reality. Fear, losing the ability to feel safe in relationships again. The emotional storm can feel overwhelming, leaving people drained and unable to trust even their own judgment. Real-life example 2. Romantic betrayal. Consider Maya. She discovered her husband had been having an affair for over a year. At first, she felt rage. She wanted answers, justice, revenge. But soon after, she felt shame. She began to question her looks, her worth, even her intelligence. Finally, came the fear. What if no one can ever be trusted? What if I'm broken forever? This emotional roller coaster is typical of betrayal. It's not one feeling, but a storm of many that can last for years. How betrayal changes behavior. When you've been betrayed, you don't act the same anymore. Betrayal plants seeds of hypervigilance, withdrawal, and overprotection. Hypervigilance people become overly cautious. They analyze every word, every action, looking for signs of dishonesty. Example, after being cheated on, someone might constantly check their new partner's phone or question their every move. Withdrawal, some people retreat from social life altogether. They stop opening up, preferring loneliness over the risk of more betrayal. Example, a friend who once loved parties now avoids gatherings, saying, "People just disappoint you." Overprotection. Betrayed individuals may build emotional walls so high that no one can get close, even people who genuinely care. Example, someone who was backstabbed at work may refuse to collaborate ever again, even with trustworthy co-workers. The loneliness of betrayal. Perhaps one of the most devastating outcomes is isolation. Betrayal convinces you that you can't trust anyone, and without trust, relationships cannot thrive. The result? People end up alone, even when surrounded by others. Loneliness is not just sad, it's dangerous. Studies show loneliness increases risks of depression, anxiety, even physical illness. In this way, betrayal doesn't just end a relationship, it can quietly poison all future ones. Real-life example 3. Workplace betrayal. Imagine Thomas. He worked hard with his team on a project, but when the boss asked who deserved credit, his colleague claimed most of the work. That betrayal changed Thomas. In future jobs, he avoided teamwork, kept ideas to himself, and never fully trusted colleagues again. Though it protected him from more betrayal, it also limited his career growth. This shows the double-edged sword of behavioral change. After betrayal, it shields you, but it also restricts you. The long-term psychological consequences. Chronic anxiety. The brain stays stuck in fight or flight, always waiting for the next betrayal. Depression. The sense of loss, shame, and hopelessness often spirals into depression. Identity crisis. Betrayed people often ask, "Who am I now? Was I ever the person I thought I was?" Difficulty with intimacy. Many find it almost impossible to open their hearts again, fearing new betrayals. The cycle of self-doubt. Betrayal often plants a seed of self-doubt that grows over time. People ask themselves, did I ignore the red flags? Was I too trusting? Do I even deserve loyalty? This self-doubt is cruel because it blames the victim instead of the betrayer. Yet it's a natural psychological reaction. The brain wants to find meaning in the chaos. Real-life example 4. Self-betrayal. After betrayal. Consider Jane. Her best friend spread lies about her at school. Instead of blaming the friend, Jane blamed herself. I should have known better. I shouldn't have told her so much. Over time, Jane stopped trusting her own instincts. She second-guessed every choice, every relationship. This shows how betrayal doesn't just hurt relationships with others, it damages the relations you have with yourself. How betrayal rewires the future. Here's the sobering truth. Once betrayed, you are never the same person again. Some common long-term shifts include: skepticism becomes default. Instead of giving trust freely, people demand proof of loyalty. Boundaries become rigid, walls go up, protecting from harm but blocking intimacy. Love becomes conditional instead of pure love. People offer guarded affection, always keeping an escape plan in mind. Identity becomes hardened. Some people adopt a never again mindset, strong, resilient, but often lonely. The silent transformation. Betrayal doesn't just hurt, it transforms. Some changes are painful, others empowering. For instance, some people become stronger, wiser, sharper. They learn to value loyalty and authenticity more deeply. Others become colder, distant, withdrawn. They protect themselves but at the cost of human connection. The truth is, betrayal is a kind of death, the death of who you were before. And like any death, it leaves behind grief, but also the possibility of rebirth. Closing of part 2. We've seen how betrayal is not just a momentary sting, but a deep psychological wound that alters the brain, reshapes emotions, and transforms behavior. It leaves scars of fear, mistrust, and self-doubt, often lasting a lifetime. But betrayal doesn't only destroy, it can also rebuild. In part 3, we will explore the journey of healing from betrayal, how to move beyond pain, how to trust again without being naive, and how betrayal, while devastating, can sometimes be the very thing that awakens you to your deepest strength. We've journeyed through the darkness of betrayal, its definition, its sting, and its long-term psychological consequences. But betrayal isn't only about pain. It can also become the beginning of a new chapter. This part explores the path of healing, the lessons betrayal leaves behind, and how it reshapes you forever, sometimes in ways that are painful, but also in ways that are profoundly transformative. Because while betrayal may change you, it doesn't have to destroy you. The first step, accepting the reality. The hardest part of betrayal is acceptance, not forgiveness. Yet, not moving on, but simply acknowledging, yes, this happened to me. Yes, someone I trusted broke my heart. Yes, my life has changed. Many people get stuck in denial or endless rumination. They replay the betrayal again and again, wishing it had gone differently. But healing begins only when you stop rewriting the past and start facing it. Acceptance is like setting down a heavy backpack. You can finally breathe again. Real life example 1. The partner who finally faced the truth. Take Lena. After discovering her fiance's betrayal, she spent months insisting, it was just a mistake. He still loves me. Things can go back to normal. But deep down, she knew they couldn't. Only when she admitted to herself, this relationship is broken beyond repair, did her healing begin. Acceptance doesn't mean you like what happened. It means you stop fighting against reality and start learning how to live with it. The power of grief. Betrayal is not just a loss of trust, it's a loss of a person, a relationship, even a version of yourself. And loss always brings grief. That's why healing from betrayal requires grieving. You must mourn not just the relationship, but also the memories that feel tainted, the future that will never happen, the innocence of your former self, who believed in unconditional trust. Allowing yourself to grieve, crying, journaling, talking with friends is not weakness. It's the way the heart slowly rebuilds itself. Real life. Example 2. Grieving a friendship. Mark discovered his closest childhood friend had been lying to him for years, taking advantage of his generosity. At first, he tried to brush it off, saying, "It's fine. I don't care." But he did care. His silence only delayed his pain. When Mark finally let himself grieve the loss, allowing the tears, the anger, the sadness, he began to move forward. Betrayal healing requires grief, because only by mourning what was lost can you make space for what comes next. Forgiveness, misunderstood but powerful. Now, let's talk about a word many people struggle with: forgiveness. Forgiveness is not excusing the betrayal, forgetting what happened, letting the betrayer back into your life. Forgiveness is choosing not to carry the poison of hatred forever, freeing yourself from being defined by the wound. Think of betrayal like being bitten by a snake. The betrayal is the bite, but holding on to anger is like keeping the venom inside you. Forgiveness is how you extract the venom, not for the snake's sake, but for your own survival. Real-life example 3. A daughter and her father. Sophia's father abandoned her when she was young. For years, she held on to rage, saying, "I'll never forgive him." But that rage burned inside her, affecting every relationship. Later, in therapy, she realized forgiveness didn't mean reconciling with him. It meant saying, "I released the grip this betrayal has on me." The moment she forgave, not to excuse, but to free herself, she felt lighter. Forgiveness wasn't about him. It was about reclaiming her own peace. Rebuilding trust. One of the hardest challenges after betrayal is trusting again. The instinct is to close off completely. Never again will I let anyone in. But living without trust is like living without oxygen. You can survive, but you can't thrive. So how do you rebuild trust? Start small. Trust doesn't have to begin with big commitments. It can start with small acts: sharing a thought, asking for help, letting someone show you reliability. Observe actions, not words. Betrayal often comes from people whose words didn't match their actions. Healing means learning to trust behavior, not just promises. Trust yourself first. The foundation of all trust is self-trust. Once you believe you can protect yourself, set boundaries, walk away, recognize red flags, you'll feel safer trusting others again. Real-life example 4. A new relationship. After being cheated on, Daniel swore never to date again. But over time, he realized he couldn't stay closed off forever. When he met someone new, he started slow. He didn't rush into vulnerability. He paid attention to consistency, honesty, reliability. Eventually, Daniel realized trust isn't about never being hurt again. It's about believing in your ability to handle whatever comes, transforming pain into growth. Here's the paradox. Betrayal can break you, but it can also remake you. Psychologists call this post-traumatic growth, when people come out of pain stronger, wiser, and more authentic. Common growth after betrayal includes stronger boundaries. You learn to say no where once you said yes. Deeper self-knowledge. Betrayal forces you to ask, who am I, really? What do I deserve? Greater appreciation for loyalty. You stop taking honesty for granted and value it deeply. Resilience. Having survived betrayal, you know you can survive again. Real-life example 5. The Phoenix Effect. Emma's business partner stole from her, leaving her bankrupt. It was devastating, but instead of letting it end her, she used the pain as fuel. She started a new company, this time with stricter contracts, better boundaries, and a sharper instinct for who to trust. Years later, Emma said, "That betrayal was the worst thing that ever happened to me, and the best. It forced me to rise stronger than I ever thought I could." Like a phoenix rising from ashes, betrayal can destroy, but it can also give birth to a stronger self. The spiritual dimension of betrayal. Many people find that betrayal forces them to confront deeper questions. What does loyalty really mean? Why do humans hurt each other? What can I learn from suffering? Some turn to faith, meditation, or spirituality, finding meaning in the pain. Others embrace philosophy like Stoicism, which teaches that betrayal is beyond your control, but your response is within your power. Either way, betrayal often becomes not just a wound, but a teacher. The forever change. Let's be clear. You will never be the same after betrayal. That's not pessimism, it's truth. But the change doesn't have to be only negative. You may be less naive, but more wise, less trusting, but more discerning, less open to everyone, but more open to the right ones. In short, betrayal hardens you in some ways, but it also polishes you, like pressure creating diamonds. Practical steps for healing. Here are some practical tools that help in healing from betrayal. Therapy or counseling. Professional guidance helps process the trauma and rebuild self-trust. Journaling. Writing your emotions can untangle the chaos inside your mind. Support systems. Surround yourself with people who value loyalty. Friends, mentors, communities. Boundaries. Learn to set healthy boundaries so trust is earned, not assumed. self-care exercise, rest, creativity, and mindfulness. These heal not just the mind but the body. Closing reflections. Betrayal is one of the most painful human experiences. It cuts deep, leaving scars that last a lifetime. But betrayal is not just an ending, it is also a beginning. It forces you to shed illusions, confront your wounds, and rebuild yourself from the ground up. Yes, betrayal changes you forever. But in that change lies the possibility of becoming stronger, wiser, and more authentic than you ever imagined. As the old saying goes, the wound is where the light enters you. Final words. So, if you've been betrayed, remember this. You are not broken beyond repair. The pain you feel is real, but it is not permanent. This betrayal may have rewritten your story, but you hold the pen now, and maybe, just maybe, the version of you that emerges from this betrayal will be the strongest, truest version yet.